Hey, ladies and gents, welcome back to the Controlled Interest Gamecast. We're talking about video games and everything happening in the industry. Episode 61, two-man podcast. I'm joined by Dom.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening.
Unfortunately, Jordan couldn't be with us today. No, that makes it sound sad, right? We were just having some technical issues, so we decided to roll with the two-man podcast. Let's just hop right into what we've been playing. Not a busy week for me in terms of games. I played Overwatch due to the anniversary event. They added a bunch of cool new stuff. Also hop back into Injustice. I never finished the story. Was watching some Injustice 2 streams and felt like going back and playing it. And I'm better at fighting video games than I ever was. So that was comforting since I didn't constantly have to just skip. I never had to skip a fight because like Injustice has this thing where I think if you lose enough times, you can just skip the fight, right? And watch the story. That never happened to me, thankfully. It was a fun time. I enjoyed Injustice. Injustice 2 is one of those games, like, if I was more into fighters, I would definitely pick it up, but I just can't justify a full-fledged $60 for a fighting game when I'm not a huge fighting game fan, but, man, that game is remarkable from how it looks, anyways. That's pretty much it for me. Not a busy week. What about you?
I'm with you on Injustice. I didn't even try it, but I'm looking at it like, a little part of me wants to try it out, but I know it's not a good. I know I'm not going to be into it because I don't even really play fighting games at all, really. So, and I love Batman. Second favorite IP probably, but the rest of the DC characters, I don't really care about. So that wouldn't be enough to. But yeah, it looks really cool though. But it bums me out. But anyway, what I've actually been playing is Breath of the Wild. I did have probably one of the busiest work weeks I've had in a while, so I didn't get to too much of games at all. Only a couple hours of Zelda. Now I'm into the final divine beast, the Goron. Yeah. I don't even know what they call him. The big Goron Death Mountain divine beast just got inside there, so that'll be the last one, and then I'll probably maybe grab a couple more shrines before actually going and finally beating the game and finishing, saving Hyrule and the such like you're supposed to do. And then I'm thinking I'm going to set that down until that DLC, the single player DLC piece that's later this year supposedly. But that's all I've been playing. And of course more Mario Kart too. So
yeah,
same
old. Yeah, exactly. That's gonna be
one that is gonna come up pretty much every week, probably for the next few years. So
Jesus, yeah, it's cool. You're finally getting to the end of Breath of the Wild. That's a game that you've said that you're kind of piecemealing out purposely, so that way you can just take it in as you want and not have to like rush through it.
And I haven't put as much time as most people seem to. I think I'm around 50 hours and probably less than 10 before I beat the game. Well, so I guess if I get up to 60, most people hit 70, 80, I think, but there's more to come.
Yeah. I think we didn't really have a whole lot to talk about as far as games. Jordan's usually the guy that has like a laundry list, so we got through that kind of quick, I guess, this week. So I guess we'll hop into the news. The first bit of news kind of coincides with what we heard last week of the Witcher Netflix series. A while back, we heard about the Castlevania series, and we talked about it, and we're like, is this a good thing? Will it be good? We finally got the trailer, and I think it looks awesome. I think it's the easiest way to put it. It definitely gives me dark anime vibes, which I think totally fits Castlevania, right? Have you seen the trailer, Don?
Yeah, I did watch it. And it looks cool. I think it's just not my thing.
Yeah,
I'm not into anime really, and I've never played through a full Castlevania game either. So it does look good though. From an objective quality point of view, like that was the worry that this was going to be some weird, licensed crap that Netflix. Maybe not. Everyone was worried about that, but it would have been easy for them to put through some crap. But my biggest takeaway is there was a short amount of time, I feel like, between when the show was announced and now when it's coming out in July, right?
Yeah.
July? Yeah. So that gives me, when we talked about the Witcher series and I predicted it would come out in like 2019, I'm starting to feel like that was a silly prediction.
Well, it's interesting, too, because I'm not familiar, and there's probably details on this, I'm not familiar with who's actually animating and producing the show. I wonder if Netflix has actually created their own in-house, like, animation studio, right? And then that'd be crazy if they pump out Castlevania and then they pump out Witcher, and, like, they have this stable of, like, series they can go back to. Because, like, man, if they could do a Dark Souls or, like, a Bloodborne one in this vein, like, I appreciate the art style. I like the anime stuff. Also, like, anime and cartoons though animation is expensive, I think it's a quicker turnaround than a live action thing, right? And there's less moving parts. So I'm excited. This gets me excited for Witcher. Like you, I was never super into Castlevania, but this gets me interested. I'll definitely watch the first episode and check it out. So it intrigued me enough, anyways. No. Second up, a big bit of news. Spider-Man's Tom Holland got cast as young Nathan Drake in the Uncharted movie. There's a couple of things here we can talk about. Obviously, you're more closely tied to Uncharted than I am, but like, I want to talk about like how you feel about it being a prequel, how you feel about Tom Holland playing Nathan Drake, and if you think this movie will ever come out.
Let me start with the last thing, which is no, this movie will not ever come out. We're going to keep on hearing little things about this, and best case, Netflix picks this up 5 years from now, and it's some low budget crap that never even actually got finished. But I don't think this ever comes out. I'm sick of hearing about it, to be honest. But that being said, Tom Holland is an absolutely perfect choice. If you played Uncharted 3 and even 4, the young Nathan Drake segments, like that's this kid. I mean, granted, I've only seen Captain America Civil War. That's the only bit I've seen of Tom Holland, but the accent, he looks younger, so everything about this fits. Plus, he's becoming a bigger name now, presumably.
Well, and it's Sony, right? Sony owns the rights to the Uncharted movie. Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man, so they're familiar with him. And they're like, well, if this kid's a movie star, might as well try to piece him together and make our own Tom Cruise, right? Also, like, Spider-Man is a character that you have to nail with the snarkiness, and I think Nathan Drake is kind of that way too. And I think if Tom Holland can nail Peter Parker's snarkiness, he could nail Nathan Drake's. Yeah. And it also gives them leeway to, if this movie ever does come out, they're future-proofing themselves. Like, well, this kid's young. They can use him for a while, and they can franchise the hell out of it, right? So,
yeah. Well,
it's interesting. I'm not super tight on Uncharted. For me, my opinion is kind of like a lot of other people's, and like, if any game didn't need a movie, it's the Uncharted games, because they're pretty much movies on their own. Like, they're some of the most cinematic games. The gameplay is probably the weakest part about Uncharted, though. Like, some people's opinions are it's bad, some people's opinions are it's good. But overall, if you're looking at the game, the least important part, the part you can cut out of any Uncharted game, is the gameplay. And if you just go through all of the cinematic stuff, they're still great, right? Stand on their own. So it's like weird that they're talking about this. Like, I don't know. It's very strange to me. It's very odd. But I'm with you. I don't think this movie ever gets made. I don't think we ever see it. So I think this thing's been in development for as long as the quote unquote Halo movie has, or that TV show Steven Spielberg was supposed to produce of Halo that never came to fruition. I don't know if you remember that. Remember when they announced that Steven Spielberg was working on a Halo TV show and then it disappeared. Yeah. Speaking of things disappearing, though, the last bit of news, probably the biggest bit of news that everyone's been talking about, is Rockstar delayed Red Dead Redemption 2. It's now delayed to spring 2018. The cool thing I think about this announcement is not only do we have more time to play other games this fall, and my wallet is kind of sighing in relief of this game not coming out this fall, they actually released a bunch of new screenshots. So we actually saw a lot more Red Dead Redemption 2 than I think anybody anticipated. Did you see the screenshots at all, Dom?
Yeah, I looked at 2 of them. I think there's the cowboy looking guy, kind of silhouette-y. I don't know. I didn't pay too much attention to the screenshots, I guess.
Yeah, I looked at them really quickly because obviously this game's going to look beautiful, but I wanted to see like nitpicks and little pieces of things that we can expect. And the interesting thing is, in one of the screenshots, the city the character, it seems like, is sitting in looks like the city from Red Dead Redemption. What is it, Armadillo City, or I can't remember the main little, the first city you get to in Red Dead.
Didn't play it, so.
Oh, you didn't play the first Red Dead? Wow.
No.
Yeah, so it looks like the location. The game looks beautiful, which we're not surprised by. This game's gonna take up so much of people's time. I think this is fine though that it get delayed. We talk about this all the time, right? Like, it sucks that we're not gonna be able to play this sooner, but wouldn't we rather have a game that's better off for it?
Yeah, like, absolutely.
Plus, if there's any time, like, I think a game getting delayed in the spring hurts more than a game getting delayed in the fall, because there's already so many games in the fall, minus this year. This year's an exception of there being so many games in the spring, but usually there's so many games in the fall that if a game gets delayed, it's fine, right? A lot of gamers are okay with that. So I'm cool with that. I think you're fine with it. I'm pretty sure Jordan is too. It's like, cool. Red Dead Redemption, we already didn't have a release date, and a lot of people already anticipated this happening. The one that would break my heart, though, is Super Mario Odyssey getting delayed. Just because that's the sole reason I want to buy a Switch. So if I end up picking up a Switch in early September, and then we'll know by then, obviously. We'll probably know by E3, by next week, whether or not when it's coming out or whatever. I really hope it doesn't get delayed, though.
I keep telling myself it won't, but like the deepest part of my mind is like laughing at me, like it's gonna get delayed. You fucker.
Oh yeah, it's like, oh, it will. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the earnings call when they talked about Red Dead Redemption 2 getting delayed, they also talked about a big familiar 2K franchise having another release in that same year, which is weird. Like, so some of the ideas are Borderlands and BioShock, and what I want to talk to you about real quick is like, out of those two games, which one do you think is more likely? A new BioShock entry or a new Borderlands? Like, we've already heard Gearbox working on Borderlands 3, but do you think it's going to come that soon?
Yeah, they've been... I feel like I remember hearing about Borderlands 3 for a while. For at least 2 years back, I think they first mentioned it. And then just the last couple of months, they said at one point Borderlands 3, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's obviously what it is, given that. I think BioShock, it's possible that I have the timelines mixed up and they just have been quieter about BioShock. But I think all signs right now that that are visible to us point to Borderlands 3.
Yeah, because like if you think about it, BioShock, if that game is in development, I don't think it's a game that they're going to rush. Whereas with Gearbox, they've had a couple of flops lately. They published Bulletstorm, which I don't think sold that well. They released, what's the Overwatch clone that didn't do too well? Battleborn. Yeah, that game came out, didn't do hot. Gearbox is an interesting company. They're a company to me that seems to have all this notoriety, and I personally don't understand it. I've played both Borderlands and Borderlands 2, and I thought they were okay games. They're loot chasers, right? You get the new gun. The worlds are very empty to me. I don't think the characters are interesting. They're just games that rub me the wrong way. Like I really don't like the Borderlands games. So like when I'm hearing about Borderlands 3, that doesn't get me excited at all. Like I don't even know what they would have to announce with the Borderlands 3 to even get me interested. Whereas like my heart wants a new BioShock,
so, I had like a scenario play out in my head. I want to share this with you. I think it'll be funny. So 2K is the publisher here, right? And then Rockstar, Gearbox are the dev teams. Rockstar, I could just see like the different someone representing each of the developers walks into the 2K boardroom, and one of the big exec from 2K says to the Gearbox guy, so when can we expect Borderlands 3 to come out? You're under contract to get it done by whatever March 2018. How's it looking? I don't know. It's coming along. I get real nervous, right?
Yeah.
And then just gets like the fist slammed down, like, this is no more bullshit. Your game is coming out. I want it done. Like, just, And then the big 2K exec turns to the Rockstar representative. So we're still good for Red Dead 2, fall 2017, right? And the Rockstar representative spits on the floor of the boardroom and looks over and says, no, we're going to be late. Thinking sometime 2018 in that same attitude. And the 2K exec says, yeah, okay, sure. All right. And next on the agenda.
It's like the food chain isn't what you'd expect. Rockstar's above the exec on the food chain.
I know. I romanticize that whole thing, but it's just a funny thing I could see.
Another interesting talking point when it comes to the Red Dead Redemption 2 delays, people are like, well, this game could get delayed a second time. And I do think that's possible, but it's... So right now we have no idea what's coming out next fall, obviously. We barely know what's coming out this fall. And the only things I could think of are maybe one of the Star Wars games from EA, right? A Call of Duty, obviously, is a guarantee. AC, if it goes year to year. Red Dead Redemption 2 is tough because it can release in the spring, it can release anytime, be completely fine. But it's like, as gamers, when would we want it? And if next spring is as bad as this spring, and I mean that in a good way, I kind of don't want Red Dead in the spring. I would kind of want it more in the fall. But if it is empty, if it is the normal spring we have, I think it releasing next spring would be great, right? Because it's the springs we're used to where there's not a whole lot of games coming out. You have plenty of time in between big releases.
Yeah. This year, I think 2017, we've had topics about it before. That it's just been a crazy year, like for games in general. There's so much. When I try to think about what's due for 2018, I can't really. I mean, now there's Red Dead, but outside of that, I mean, yeah, we'll get Assassin's Creed or Far Cry or Call of Duty, Battlefield, whatever, the usual stuff. But
so you want to know the games that are confirmed for 2018? I have a list.
Let's hear it. Let's go.
Darksiders 3.
Yeah, okay.
Code Vein, which is the Dark Souls anime game.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Red Dead Redemption 2, obviously. The System Shock 3, which looks really crazy.
Okay.
Overkill's The Walking Dead, which is a game that I think can get delayed every year for the rest of my life, it seems like. And then Yakuza 6, which is a pretty big game. People love Yakuza. So there's not too many things. None of those games are going to compete with Red Dead 2. Yeah. But all of them... So Red Dead 2 is the only one that even has, like, spring 2018. The rest of them are just 2018, or in System Shock 3's case, it's quarter 2.
The only other maybes, from other big players that could be 2018 or anything from EA, right? One of those Star Wars games, BioWare's new IP, but I think even that they said 2019.
Sea of Thieves from Microsoft, I think, is a huge one I could see pushed them.
Or even maybe one of the Sony first-party games.
One of the 6 of them, yeah.
Right, I would imagine one of them is spring 2018, but nothing. The only thing that could hold a candle or like even slightly interfere with Red Dead is, an EA Star Wars game. Basically Red Dead is pretty much has 2018 Game of the Year confirmed. This is
the issue too of thinking about this, of not how Red Dead reacts to other games, but think about, for instance, we're gonna, like you said earlier, romanticize it a little bit. Imagine Sony's looking at their schedule of games, and I'm one of the people that believes that maybe one of those games comes out this fall. I have a hard time believing 2 of them. I have a hard enough time believing 1 of them.
Of the Sony games?
Yeah, exactly. Imagine if Days Gone was scheduled to come out next spring. That seems like a spring game to me. Days Gone seems like a game that would benefit from coming out in that early spring year. If it comes out anywhere close to Red Dead, even though it's not a cowboy game, it's a zombie game, it being that open world,
single player, very
high fidelity game, man, Red Dead could eat that game alive. Like, absolutely destroy that game. So then Sony's in a situation of like, well, then do we just push Days Gone to the fall? But then Rockstar's like, hey, we're actually delaying again till the fall. Like, there's this weird cat and mouse game.
Yeah, that's why you can't really try to play that game too much, because
just release it when you need to release it. It's going to be tough, because I really think that one of those Sony exclusives is going to be next spring. I think one of them has to be. They saw the success with Horizon Zero Dawn. It's just going to be interesting which one they kind of already had planned for the spring and now have to deal with the competing with Red Dead, right? So it's going to be interesting to see what their game plan is.
On that same note, though, if we look at it, Sony dropped a new IP in Horizon Zero Dawn 3 days before a Zelda game. Granted, much smaller install base for Breath of the Wild than there will be for Red Dead, and Horizon is selling particularly well. I think they said the best Sony first party game sales, I don't know, in the first however many months. But
isn't that kind of like a controlled situation, though, because Zelda's also an exclusive, so you have an exclusive against an exclusive. Red Dead isn't an exclusive.
Yeah, that's why I pointed out the install base is drastically different for Red Dead, but it just goes to show that you can still do well up next to something like that. It's not like you're completely drowned, I guess. If we'll see what Days Gone even is, though, I guess. But
yeah, exactly. Well, and the thing is,
so much speculation right now.
Horizon Zero Dawn is a phenomenal game, and I think there was markings there from all the people had their worries, but that game always looked like a phenomenal experience.
Yeah,
Days Gone is one of those things that I'm kind of like,
hesitant.
Yeah, that game could be great, but it also could be,
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how this Red Dead delay kind of affects everything else, but we're not the people sitting in the, like you said, the 2K exec. We're not these execs that are like, okay, let's go back to the scheduling board. Okay, so this game's coming out in the spring. They're going to have the conversation of, do we move this out of the way? Now, you said you can't play that game, and it's correct. Like, if you move it, what if they move it? But they're at least having that conversation. You know what I mean? They're like flirting with the idea of a what-if scenario, which is pretty interesting and pretty scary, honestly, to be the lead of like a publisher and have to deal with that, because last thing I want to do is compete with Red Dead. Believe me. Yeah, but we'll hop to your topic here. Real quick, the podcast will be a little short this week. We're running a little bit short on time, and it's a 2-man podcast, so
we're down a man.
We're probably going to be closer to like a half an hour, than like the normal hour. So go ahead, Dom. What's your topic?
So it recently came out. Ubisoft came out and laid out their whole roadmap all at once, seemingly saying, later 2017 we have an Assassin's Creed game. We also have South Park releasing October 2017. We just had Wildlands come out, and now we got, did I say Far Cry already? We got Far Cry coming out soon.
Yeah.
Pretty much they just put their whole selves out there. We're Ubisoft. These are our games. And all expected, what those are the games that Ubisoft publishes. So it sort of got me thinking, like, yeah, those are all good games. I think South Park will stick above, stick of truth above. Anyway, South Park will be a bit better than the rest of theirs, in my opinion. Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, even Wildlands, I think fall victim to that same old Ubisoft game kind of thing, which just got me, critical of them as a publisher, I suppose. Like, yep, all their games are kind of, they're good, right? None of them are particularly great, sort of thing. And, of course, immediately after that, I start comparing them to other publishers. So the question I want to bring up is, I think we've done before, what is your favorite publisher? I want to go a little bit differently and say, if you could only play games from one publisher, which would it be? So this might not be your favorite publisher, right? Otherwise, it would be easy for me to say Nintendo, because I would, like, Zelda is far and above my favorite franchise of all time. But as a publisher, I'm gonna look at what else Nintendo has. I don't know if that's all I could play, if that's what I would pick. Not that there isn't other good stuff from Nintendo, but you see where I'm going. So this is more you can bring one publisher's games to your desert island, and that's all you get. Which would it be? So I feel like I was just rambling for a while. I set you up. Well, let me run through. I'll give you some inspiration, and then I'll let you answer first. So I just mentioned a bunch of the Ubisoft games. Nintendo, that's easy. You have your Zelda, your Mario, maybe your Metroids, that kind of stuff. Your Fire Emblems, Pokemon. Your EA, your Mass Effects, your Dragon Age, your Star Wars now, and your sports games, of course, which could be pretty important for a lot of people. Then you have your Square Enix, your Final Fantasy, your Kingdom Hearts, your Tomb Raiders, your Deus Ex, maybe not Hitman anymore. But
your Marvel now.
Shit, yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Your Marvel,
Yeah.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
Then you have your Bethesda, which has become a heavy hitter as of late. Your Fallouts, your Skyrims, your Elder Scrolls, your Prey, now your Wolfenstein, Dishonored, Doom.
Evil Within, like they have a
Evil
pretty
Within.
wide range in the catalog, yeah.
Yeah, they've been building pretty steadily here. Then, of course, you have your Sony, first party, your Naughty Dog games, your Guerrilla games now with Horizon and whatever else is next, your Ratchet and Clank, and a bunch of the new stuff that we talk about, Days Gone, Death Stranding, Bloodborne, very good. Well, that is Sony published
by Sony, yeah.
That's true. Days Gone, then your Infamous, your God of War, some of the Sony's older franchises. There's a lot more, obviously, that I didn't mention. Oh, and then your Microsoft, of course.
Which I think they're the weakest out of most of them. I love Microsoft, but they do have, it's a desert island scenario, they do have the weakest catalog.
Yep. And then you have your Activision, your Call of Duty, Destiny.
Which Activision owns Blizzard, so then you throw in Overwatch and all of those games too. Yeah.
There's a lot going on that it's hard to sum up real quickly. And then you have your smaller publishers, THQ Nordic, etc. But
yeah.
All right.
This is interesting and it's tough. So I'm gonna go each one by each one and kind of eliminate them. So Ubisoft has a great array of games, but they do feel samey, and I don't say that in a bad way. I think Ubisoft games are great when they're spaced out and you play them in their own time. And I think that's why one reason why Far Cry 5 and Assassin's Creed both aren't coming out this year. If I was a betting man, Far Cry 5 comes out next spring, Assassin's Creed is this fall. Yep. And it's because, you don't want to... Like, playing The Division and then Wildlands back-to-back, I couldn't see anybody doing that, or I couldn't do that, because they're great games on their own, but they're essentially the same game, right? They're very close to each other. So Ubisoft's out for me. Though I love Ubisoft, they're out. Microsoft, out. I love Microsoft, weakest catalog. We're talking specifically for this scenario. Then it comes down to, honestly, the three that are left for me are EA, Sony, and Nintendo. EA is tough because... Yeah.
Wait a minute. You knocked out Bethesda?
See, Bethesda's tough because I love Bethesda. Like, not being able to play Elder Scrolls hurts, not being able to play Fallout hurts. But if I'm looking at the whole catalog... I would have to eliminate Bethesda. As much as that hurts, it's hard because honestly,
one other thing to consider here also is the legs on the games you're picking.
Exactly.
So I'm with you on Bethesda. I'd want to knock them out, but then you look at Fallout and Skyrim, and then how many hours you can put into those games.
Yeah. Oof. And then you're not even saying if we can get mods for them or anything, because that's a whole other story.
I'd say mods are a go. Mods are included in this.
I'm still gonna have to get rid of them.
Okay.
So then it comes down to... Actually, I'm going to keep them in. I have 4 players right now. Then it comes
They're
down
still
to
alive.
Nintendo. I love Nintendo published games. The problem with Nintendo is they don't have a variety. Splatoon it doesn't look like a fun game to me personally. So that means that immediately with Nintendo, I'm never getting a shooter that I'll like. Right? And I mean, they might come a time when they publish a shooter I like, but like... Just looking at what they have now, I'm gonna lose shooters for the rest of my life. I'm never gonna be able to play shooters. Though the Mario Karts are great and Zelda Breath of the Wild and all this stuff is fantastic, I'm losing out on shooters, which is one of my favorite game genres. They do platformers well and stuff like that, but so I'm gonna have to eliminate Nintendo. I think Nintendo has a strong stable. I just think their versatility doesn't help them and their legs on their games. I think Breath of the Wild is one of the only games that they've come out with recently that has legs. Super Mario Odyssey could also be that, but like you just previously stated, they're not Bethesda, right? So then it comes down to EA and Sony. EA, Sony, Bethesda. EA, I like EA. They have the Star Wars games. They have all of the sports games. I don't play FIFA. I play Madden every year. They have a good stable. I love Titanfall. I love their shooters. But I don't think that they have enough of the franchises that I truly love. Like, I love Star Wars, but outside of that, I like Titanfall. I don't love it. I like Madden. I don't love it. Whereas I love Elder Scrolls. I love Fallout, right? So they're automatically eliminated. So then it comes down to Sony and Bethesda. And I know you're thinking, Sony, Jared, you don't even own a PlayStation. Yes.
That lineup, though.
Yes, but if you think about Desert Island, that means that you're giving me a PlayStation, so I don't have to buy one, which is great. You're giving me a superhero game in Spider-Man. You're giving me a post-apocalyptic game in Last of Us. You're giving me adventure games in the Uncharted series. I get my Dark Souls fix, so I don't have to pick Bandai Namco. I get the
Bloodborne.
Yeah. I get the platformers in Spyro if that ever comes back, and obviously the Crash remaster. Like, there's a lot of options with Sony. Exactly. The problem is I don't think that any of Sony's games are super long and the longevity thing. And honestly, I don't think I love any Sony franchise because I like Dark Souls more than Bloodborne. Bloodborne's cool and it's great and everything, but everyone always talks about, I like Bloodborne more, it's faster, I like the world more. I don't. I really enjoy the world of Dark Souls way more than the world of Bloodborne. And for me, it's like, well, I'm getting my Dark Souls gameplay, but I'm not really getting the world I want. And if you're telling me I'm going to be able to play any new Wolfenstein, any new Doom game, like I loved Doom, Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Evil Within, like they have a range of games too, and you said you can include the mods, Bethesda, man. That's my answer. I'm going Bethesda.
Right,
I was actually going to eliminate them, and you made a strong case, and the more I started thinking
Shoot.
about it, I was like, yeah. It came down to Sony and Bethesda, though, and I think, for me, Bethesda has the franchises that are more I care more about, you know? If I'm more excited for the possibility of Elder Scrolls 6 than I am for Last of Us 2. And I'm not saying Last of Us 2 is not going to be a good game. It's going to be a phenomenal game. It's going to be a 10 probably. But for my personal interest, I'm excited to see what Elder Scrolls 6 has to offer, you know? And Fallout 5. So
yeah, that's good. So I see you didn't even You didn't even let Square into the conversation.
Square was a player solely for the Marvel games, but outside of that, I don't care about anything else Square does. Like, Final Fantasy is cool, but it's not something I super care about. You want to talk about longevity, though? You have every Final Fantasy game that came out, and each of those are like 100 hours plus.
Nah.
It's like, bang for your buck. But yeah, for me, Bethesda, dude, easy.
Left out 2K, no BioShock, no GTA.
Yeah, I'm still, man, Bethesda. Like, I gotta go with Elder Scrolls and Fallout and all those other, like, they have a very diverse set of games, and like I said, they have the shooters. The only thing I'm gonna be missing out on with them is platformers, and that's gonna be the thing that's gonna suck. But none of the other people that are up there have the platformers, so it's like I'm gonna lose platformers either way, you know. So,
all right, that's good. That's fair. I'm going to kick it off, so I'm going to make some of the same initial cuts. Ubisoft, their games are consistently good, sometimes great, but that's they kind of have a ceiling because you know what you're going to get, and you get it. But that's really all. They don't really do it for me in a way that stands out as much as I like their games. So they were the first easy cut. Square Enix was an easy cut. I've never played a Final Fantasy game. Kingdom Hearts was great. I played the one. Tomb Raider's up is okay, but it doesn't hold a candle to some of the other companies we're gonna get through here. So, do you want to bring up Bandai Namco because they do have Dark Souls, which is a big deal, but that's it.
And they have the Dragon Ball games, which have a longevity to them, and I love Dragon Ball. So that's cool, but there aren't games I enjoy. I'm just throwing in some extra for Bandai Namco.
Yeah, and now they have this Code Vein thing,
yep.
Which who knows what that'll be like. But still, easy cut for me.
And every Pac-Man game ever, if you really love
That's
Pac-Man.
A really good point. Shoot. Yeah. I'm sure someone would pick them based on that. But
yeah.
Anyway, 2K is an easy cut for me. Never got into GTA. Didn't play Red Dead like I mentioned. BioShock it's a tough pill, but you have a disease and you need your medication, so you gotta swallow it. So I say goodbye, BioShock. Nintendo, I'm gonna skip Nintendo and I'm gonna move on to EA for now.
Yeah.
EA is tough, man, because now they got Battlefront and these other two Star Wars games. I love Mass Effect. Dragon Age I never really connected with, but I could. If I'm on that island, I'm sure I'd love some Dragon Age.
Battlefield 1, a game you played the demo for and enjoyed. Like, they have that too, you know? If you're on a desert island, it's a game, you know?
Yeah, it's good. They got some good stuff. If I were into sports games, they might win it for me.
Yeah.
But I don't really play any sports games anymore, so...
If they brought back NCAA football, I would pick EA.
That's a good point, too.
I love NCAA football.
I will say, though, if my wife was a part of this conversation, she would pick EA real quick.
Sims, right?
Sims, yeah.
Yeah.
As despicable as their business model is for Sims, she'd have to pick that. But anyway, so now I'm down to Nintendo, Bethesda, and Sony. And I hate to do it, and it's like someone's just reached in my chest and grabbed my heart and is twisting it. But I have to eliminate Nintendo. Yeah, that means Ocarina of Time is gone. But I just have to do it because there's just not enough girth in that catalog for me.
Good word. Word of the day.
Yeah, that's how I feel it's best described, right? Like,
yeah,
they have the single greatest game of all time, but I don't want to say that's it, but
for
after
you,
that,
is The Legend of Zelda enough on the scale to tip it in Nintendo's favor, and it's not, right?
That's my point, and that's why this question is different than what's your favorite publisher.
Yeah,
you know, because I'm on that desert island, and that's just not enough. Sometimes you got to sacrifice some quality for some quantity, because this is a lifetime on a desert island.
Yeah.
So that's the strategy I'm going with. So now I'm down to the same two you were down to in Bethesda and Sony. And to me, these are two distinct, different sets of games. So Bethesda, your big RPGs, right? And then your couple other great single-player games with your Prey, Wolfenstein, Dishonored, Doom. Not so much story and narrative intensive with those single player games, though, right? That's not what they're known for.
Well, even the RPGs, like really, they're more about exploration and stuff. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Even Fallout and Skyrim have respectable, or Fallout has respectable, storytelling. Skyrim, Elder Scrolls, not so much.
I would say it's the same as Fallout. If you're gonna say that Fallout has some, then they're pretty much the same in terms of storytelling. Like you get what you go for. Like you know what I mean? It's
from an objective, from an objective point of view, I think they're equal. I just personally,
you
Fallout stuff.
Fallout.
Yeah. So that's kind of that style, and then the Sony side, I see pretty much all single player experiences, all smaller. The biggest is Horizon right now, which still isn't nearly as big as a Fallout or Elder Scrolls, though. But although these games are all smaller, they're much stronger on the narrative side, right? With Naughty Dog and Last of Us and Uncharted, Horizon, presumably Days Gone, and some I think narratively they hold the advantage there. Plus, you got a couple platformers like you mentioned.
Dom, the best way to describe this, I think Sony's catalog is a bookshelf full of books, right? They're individual stories that you can read, and they're great stories. But after you read that story, it's up to you if you enjoy rereading that book over and over again, right? Whereas Bethesda is a box of Legos and some action figures. The box of Legos is Fallout and Skyrim, and then the action figures are the standalone fun games that aren't super narrative. So it's like, do you value the bookshelf full of books where you can read the story, but how much value are you going to get out of rereading the same story over and over again? Or do you go for the Lego box and the action figures? And some people might want the bookshelf and just reread the books, Yeah,
so. That's a pretty damn good analogy, actually. Because, I think narratively, all the Sony games, well above the Bethesda games. But as far as, longevity, I don't know that... I mean, I've played through The Last of Us twice for a total of, 25 hours.
Yeah.
Right? I could play just Fallout 4.
I spent that much time creating my character in Fallout and Skyrim, yeah.
Just Skyrim, I could play hundreds of hours and enjoy it. Not enjoy each hour as much as each hour of The Last of Us, but I'm on a desert island. I got time to kill. Plenty of coconuts. Growing some vegetables, probably. So, I got to kill time. So, it's a tough call, but I am also with Bethesda. So, I guess to everyone listening, thank you for listening to the Bethesda Interest podcast.
Exactly. Well, it's tough though, because like in the specific situation, it's like what. I guess a part of this question, I think we did get a little hung up too much on the desert island thing, because the initial question is if you can only have one publisher, and if you're thinking of the future, right? We kind of made the worst decision in some aspects, because if we're sitting here and we can only pay attention to the Bethesda releases, that means we're only getting a new AAA, like a big AAA experience every 5 years, and then we get one or two games a year,
Yeah, that's a good point. We did kind of spend a lot of time looking at it as the catalogs as they exist now. And
also,
not the future.
if you pick Sony's catalog, hopefully you don't like playing video games in the fall, because you're never going to play one in the fall.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, that's when it's starting to get cold and you're on the island, so you got to start preparing for winter, right?
Exactly. I think we did a pretty good job, though. I think we picked Bethesda, but I think we made cases for most of them. I think the weakest one is obviously Microsoft, and then Ubisoft. Nintendo, Sony, Bethesda, and EA, you can make a case for any of them depending on your preferences. So it's kind of like just pick and choose what you value.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to the conversation everyone's had about E3 is just this conversation alone, it shows that Microsoft needs some more stuff, in some capacity. Like, they just need some more stuff for us to be interested in, because it's weird that we can sit in a place where we talk more about Bethesda having more things we're interested in than Microsoft, one of the biggest companies in the world. Sony has a crazy catalog, and they're actually not that much older in terms of PlayStation than Xbox. It's like 7 years or something. So, I really hope this is the year where we get to see new stuff from Xbox and stuff for us to get excited about, because we are getting these new IP from Sony, these Neos, even Bloodborne, and we're not really seeing new stuff from Xbox. And that's kind of, we're like, let's see another Fable, let's see another Gears, let's see another Halo. I want some new IP. We had that with Scalebound, got canceled, so yeah. Unfortunately, that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Game Pass, though, looks cool.
Oh yeah, Game Pass looks great. Could be a game changer, honestly, especially for GameStop. Yeah, I think that was episode 61 for you guys. Next week, you're going to be having a bunch of E3 podcasts. Us and guests are going to be talking about our predictions and what we expect from the conferences. Pardon the audio issues we had at the beginning of the podcast. This was kind of a train wreck. Just deal with it. After E3, they'll be fine. We just had some audio issues, no biggie. And then Jordan will be back next week for E3, and then the following week when we wrap up all of the E3 coverage. Yeah. Really quick before we head out, what are we going to be playing next week? I'm going to be editing all of our E3 stuff, so I don't know if I'm going to have any time to do anything. So I'm not going to guarantee I'm playing anything. So that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, and it is. For me, I do want to try to keep playing Breath of the Wild, see what I can do there. But here in Michigan, we do this thing around Memorial Day and Labor Day weekends called Going Up North. So that's what I'm going to be doing for a couple days at least.
The mid-year hibernation.
Precisely. So
Yeah.
We'll see what I actually end up getting around to, but that's the plan. Some Breath of the Wild if I can squeeze her in.
Yeah, well, this is a part where we kind of self-promote. Thank you guys for listening. If you want to follow us on Twitter for all of the latest updates, Controlled Interest Twitter is @CTRLINT. Individually, you can follow us on Twitter @Jared_ and Dom @DomsOreos. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. Like I say every week, even if you don't watch our YouTube videos and you just listen on iTunes or wherever and take it, we're at 90 subs. We're 10 away from a custom URL, and you wouldn't imagine how much that helps. Also, a little bit of a sneak peek. We're going to be rolling out a new weekly series. I don't want to divulge too much on it, but it's going to be cool. Hopefully we can hit it every week, and I think it's going to be something people enjoy. I think that's pretty much it. We'll catch you guys next week for E3, and then in episode 62 the week after. So, catch you guys next time. Bye.